Now entering Terahertz Gap. Caution is advised. Anomaly title, Lozenge. Warnings, teeth, dentistry, passive-aggressive language, and hypnosis. Please enjoy your stay.
Statement of Denise Molay on Experience Broken Continue. Hold up there. I didn't experience any broken continuity. I just had really weird dreams. Everyone has them, actually. For your information, Mix Justine, I'm a recorder. That's the most obvious fake name ever, by the way. Where I went. No, hell, I didn't go anywhere. I don't get why this is such a big deal, but you're giving me $50 just to talk about my weird dreams. So I guess that I'll at least give you what you want. If only you'd smile, though. I have a common fear known as dentophobia, which is the fear of dentists and dentistry. Therefore, I do listen to the dentist very, very carefully so as to minimize the amount of times I have to make the trip. I brush before and after every meal, floss regularly, you know the drill. Ironically, the very thing I'd like to avoid. But that's just to give you some context for my dreams. I've had dreams and nightmares about teeth for as long as I can remember. I have no idea why you're wasting our time on this one. If you were in it, I'd see a reason, but you're not. And I don't think I've ever dreamt of anyone as strange as you before. And some of my other dreams are just far more interesting. Either way, yeah, you're right. This particular dream started after I tried out a new dentist. I think that's it. That's all there's to it. Just the nerves of a new experience mixing with my fear. However, I had been recommended to try out this new dentist for a few reasons. A major one being that the practice was reported to cater to those with dentophobia. They also took my insurance. It's a weird one that not everyone knows. So that was a nice bonus. So when the time came for my next dental visit, I called, scheduled an appointment, and was assured every step of the process that my needs and worries would be addressed, even describing some of the methods that they would use to ensure my comfort. It was a rather interesting idea that they told me about. It was hydrohypnotherapy. Now, I've heard of hydrotherapy and I've heard of hypnotherapy, but I've never heard of that. It caught me off guard, frankly. I asked if it was like a combination of the two therapies, and the receptionist told me that it kind of is. And it was usually the explanation that he gave out the most often. I decided to keep that appointment anyways, because I had to go to the dentist and I might as well make it interesting. Maybe they could actually help. It would be nice to not feel my heart race at the sight of a toothbrush in a gloved hand. I did my usual methods of calming down on my way to the appointment. That included getting a taxi so I wouldn't be able to chicken out of going since I'd be paying for the trip, giving an extra tip so that the cabbie would play my favorite music on repeat, deep breathing methodology, and promising myself that the odd little thing that my tongue kept gravitating towards was not a cavity. It was just in my imagination. On the way in, I got a ping on my phone with the consent forms, which I skimmed and signed, trying not to think too hard about it. The dental office was unassuming on the outside, as most of them are, but there was no iconography that indicated that there was a dentist within. The logo had 3 bubbles and made no reference to dentistry whatsoever, only proclaiming the Float Lozenge. It's a quirky name, sure, but it definitely made me feel better. A way of tricking the brain, almost. Inside, that sort of beachy theme continued. The walls painted in the same style of those 60s shoreside resorts with tacky sand murals. I wouldn't say that there was anything particularly special or unique about the place. It doesn't show up in my dreams. It was nice not to be reminded of the fact that you were in a dentist's place. I would say that the recommendations that got me there were very accurate. I at least managed to relax somewhat. The secretary was a younger man with a brilliant white tooth smile of his own. I remember he smiled like he meant it. You don't really see that so often these days. Most of the time, people just sit through their jobs with their eyes glued to the bottom left corner of the screens, at their clock. People don't really feel like their work makes a difference, so they don't bother trying. It feels like a 1 in 1,000 chance when you come across someone who does care about their work. I think you care about your work. You should smile. Whatever, now you got me rambling. It's your eye color, I think. Well, he asked me if I had my beach bag, as the pre-appointment form noted, and I showed it. That was like the only thing I read from it. So he smiled again and pointed me to a changing room, informing me that the beachcomber would be available as soon as I was ready. That's the term he used. Beachcomber. The whole experience was unique and almost jarring, but in a way that made it absolutely palatable. Like the shock was a warm blanket dulling the frightening truth of the matter. I changed into my swimsuit and rinsed off, as the signs demanded. I actually had tried to go out dry, but the secretary frowned and requested that I follow the regulations of the dental facility. Fair, rules are rules, typically for a reason. After I stepped out again, now dripping with cold water, he smiled once again and got up to show me to the room. The first thing that struck me was the warmth. The exam room was shockingly hot, probably mid-80. The sort of temperature that makes you think that jumping into a cool pool is a great idea. I felt my whole body heat up in there, breaking into sweat, and I couldn't even tell if it was from the stress of being about to have someone prodding in my mouth, or if it was the sweat of heat. All in all, an effective distraction strategy, and a good way to get folks into the next noticeable feature of the room. The giant tub. It was large enough for at least 4 people, elevated off the ground with a ramp leading up to it. It was like elevated to comfortable height for someone to stand next to it to work. The water was perfectly clear, and this was made evident by the fact that it was a solid glass tub. You could see straight through the whole thing. It was perfectly still on top, as though someone carved it from crystal. An inviting, appealing image, if not downright alluring. Unlike you. Come on, lighten up! It was a joke. Smile! Or not. Anyways, I stepped further into the room, and another feature stood out as I did. The whole floor was covered in sand, a pale sort. It was quite hot, as sand in the sun tends to be, and I found myself swiftly heading up the ramp and into the water to avoid that burning sensation. Another strong encouragement to get into the tub and not think about the fact that you were in a dental office. The water was a perfect temperature, neither too hot nor too cold. There was a slight tingling sensation as I got in, with bubbles swiftly swarming along my legs. I believe it was scented, something sweet and slightly cherry-like. It was pleasant. Yeah. It was pleasant. I found myself quickly relaxing and acquainting myself with the tub, noting a space where a head could be held in place unobtrusively, a sort of like basket by front of the container with like a forehead strap and a neck support. I wonder how I would be comfortably in that position, as I've never been really good at free-floating. The assistant startled me out of my thoughts by letting me know that the beachcomber would be in shortly. I blinked, realizing that the room I was in was not the beachcomber, but the dentist was. It was another degree of separation that added to the padding around the fears, and it was fascinatingly welcome. The best part was that it was nothing like actually going to the dentist. I found myself relaxing into the water, nodding absent-mindedly when the minder reminded me that the beachcomber would be in shortly. Worked well enough for me. As far as my brain was concerned, I was soaking aimlessly in the beautiful waters of the Caribbean. Soon, there was a dinging noise, just like that of a metal detector, and I lifted my head to see the strangest excuse of a dentist walk into the room. Just like you're the strangest excuse of a researcher I have ever seen. Are you even human? Then again, I don't think he really was either. I mean, he was wearing, like, khaki shorts and a Hawaiian t-shirt, and his hand, like, he was holding an honest-to-God metal detector. Like, beachcomber indeed. He pulled down his headphones, and they were connected to, like, a Walkman on his waist or something, maybe an MP3 player, I can't really tell. His grin was, like, toothy and crisp, and, like, there was a crinkling little twinkle in his eyes. And he asked me, how's the water? And dragged forward like a tall chair in the form of like a miniature lifeguard seat and put it next to where the headrest was. I told him it was nice, a nice reprieve from the heat of the air. He smiled again and asked me to turn so that my back was facing the head-securing device. Then he warned me to watch my balance. With the click of a button, there was the hum of motors and the vibration of shifting mechanics that rose up from beneath me, causing the surface of the water to ripple and pulse. The slated floor started to rise, and I unintentionally gripped the edges of the tub as it came up, unnaturally adjusting my position to a seated one. Yeah, you heard that. You don't look surprised, but I can tell you are. It was a mechanical or electronic built-in seat at the bottom of the basin that was completely masked by the way that it seemed to be the flooring. The beachcomber just hummed and adjusted the headrest position, pulling it closer to himself, and leaned my head back after offering me a selection of different sunglasses. Interestingly enough, every single pair was two-toned, similar to those old 3D glasses. I chose silver and pink, being that those two colors were the oddest of the bunch. When he directed me to lay back, I noticed that the sun painted on the ceiling was not just a light source, but that there was a screen directly underneath that fixture. The beachcomber clicked at his cell phone and a spiral appeared. One of them is old-timey Hypnosis watches. It made me smile and roll my eyes, except for the fact that, unlike those other swirls, this one was actually mesmerizing. It must have been that he set it to match the sunglasses, because the swirls came closer and moved away and pulsed and shifted, depending on which I was focused on. He asked me a question, probably one of the usual hypnosis things, or if I was tired or getting tired. I remember answering, I believe, in the affirmative, but I was absolutely captivated by that spiraling sun. He spoke to me in a voice like butter. I don't recall anything he said except for a single word, which was drift. Drift I did, because I found myself sitting in the water of an actual beach. I looked around, just marveling at the sudden change in scenery. It wasn't a total shift. It was still a beach, but now a real one. I was a little stunned and just sat there for a long minute, just looking around. There was not a soul around, but I could see a town or city in the distance. I liked the emptiness, but you there might have been nice, especially if you'd take off some of those layers. Oh, stop being such a stone-cold spazzy statue. Come on, just loosen up a little. You're like a rock. Whatever, I'll get back to it. Something was slightly off about it, but I disregarded that in favor of expecting my more immediate surroundings. After all, the beach was simply too far from that place to bother with it. At first, I simply sat in the water before realizing that I could just get up and walk around. The water was shockingly clear, and I did not see any debris or creatures around. Just pure water on a shoreline. It tingled against my skin, probably a remnant of the actual water that I was sitting in. The sand was less cohesive than one might typically find on the beach, with like a slightly more gritty texture, but in such fragments that it was a non-issue. I walked up to the shoreline, enjoying the gorgeous sunshine and the empty expanse. The sand was that same bright color as the sand in the dentist's office, just a lot lighter than sand that you'll find on most any beach. It was largely uniform, with some grains a gleaming white, others a little darker, and some just somewhat darker. Some very rare pieces were like very dark, but mostly just uniform pale yellow, extremely pale. I'm not quite sure how long I spent there, seeing as the sun did not move in the sky the whole time, just directly above. But that was of no consequences. I was on the beach in my mind, and in the real world, all the unpleasant experiences of dental work were going on in my mouth. So I must say that the shift was a welcome one. And it did not overstay that welcome. Just when I was growing bored of the water and sun, I found my viewpoint shifting, growing somewhat nauseated at the sight of the spiral, but it was lessened as the beachcomber had already taken off the sunglasses, as it didn't seem like it was coming close or moving away anymore. My tongue immediately gravitated to that hole in my mouth, only to find that it no longer existed, and my mouth was the same tingling numbness as the rest of my body. You had a cavity that was hiding a rot, the beachcomber told me, holding forward the fragment of the tooth he had extracted. As he did, he said, "I gave you a crown in your personally selected color of silver." I didn't want to look at that tooth, so I didn't really pay too much attention. I said thanks and got myself upright, and it felt good to have all that gritty work done on my body with my brain completely on vacation. He asked me if he could keep the short of tooth, and I absolutely let him. Best not to even have that reminder close. The beachcomber told me to see the attendant for my follow-up instructions, and I got out of the water. And I felt invigorated, also relaxed. The sort of tiredness that follows a satisfying jaunt on the beach. I did a little stretching, letting the heat of the room dry me up some. Refreshed, I went to the changing room, finished drying, and changed into my regular clothes. Shortly after, I went out and was greeted once again by that cheerful secretary. A bag with the dentist's logo was waiting on that short desk in front of him, in the style of one of those small coolers that someone might take fishing. And I'd take you fishing. Hey, come on! Why can't you take a joke? God, what color did you turn? Ugh. He told me that the bag was like my personal beach care kit, whatever. Included was all the usual strappings one would find inside a dentist's take-home baggie, like toothbrush and the toothpaste and floss, toothpicks, lip balm, some Orajel, and my special sand timer. It was in pink and silver, just like the glasses I had worn and the swirl I saw. A cute add-on was actually that pair of sunglasses, as well as some sandals, also in pink and silver. The secretary went through all the usual instructions, telling me to brush before and after eating, as well as in the morning and evening. He handed me an exit form, which I glanced over and signed. Then it was walking out and ordering a cab back home. It was the strangest yet best dental experience I ever had. I was totally relaxed as I was taken home. Not a single speck of the usual after-visit anxiety. And he had even taken out part of my tooth. I'd recommend the Float Lozenge if it wasn't for the fact that the beachcomber only caters to those with dentophobia. I had to sign a waiver and everything. And it's a shame too, because he's excellent. After I got home, I climbed straight into bed. I was instantly asleep. No, that's not when the dreams started. I don't even know if you could call them dreams by the standard definition, and I don't know why you're so interested in them. I feel like that was a lot more interesting than the dreams. Whatever. They don't happen when I'm sleeping, I guess. That makes them a little interesting. But truth be told, I haven't had better sleep in years. No more dreams of my teeth falling out or the whirl of a dentist drill. None of those horrible night terrors. Not anymore. It's been fantastic. No, those dreams show up when I brush my teeth. You heard me right. I get up, go to the bathroom, put the toothpaste on my brush, set the timer, and I drift. The first time it happened, it scared the hell out of me. One second I was in my bathroom, and the next time I blinked, I was back on the beach. After the initial shock, I relaxed into it, settling down on the shore and watching that crystal clear water roll back and forth. It was the nicest time I ever had brushing my teeth in my life. And yes, when I woke up, my teeth were brushed and the timer had run out. I must have been there for a good 20 minutes, or at least it felt like it. Mildly concerned, but not really, I called the office to let them know about the incident. The secretary's cheer shifted when I mentioned that I had gone back to the beach, but not because I went to the beach. He said that it was a natural side effect and a vital part of the Lozenge's methodology. He told me it was in my exit form and that I should be sure to read it over again. They emailed me a copy. He said that it was very important I do so. Well, all I cared about was that it was supposed to happen like that, so I didn't bother. I've never had an easier time with brushing my teeth. I'm not scared about going to get dental work done either anymore, because it's just a little jaunt on a familiar beach for me. When I got the message letting me know that my return visit needed to be scheduled to check on the crown and make sure there was no more rot, I didn't push it off like I normally would have, instead scheduling right after I got that notification. You see, Mix Recorder, the beachcomber is an excellent dentist. That's what matters to me. I've never felt better about going to his John because of that beach. What could have been better? A great afternoon, sunny and crisp. And you get your teeth cleaned without having to know it. So you can suck it. You hear? You can't get anything else out of me besides that story. And actually, you know what? You can't have my dreams either. You think I want to give them up? That beach is the greatest thing that ever happened to me and my teeth. Don't look so glum. You can't win them all, you know. I'll tell you about the routine he told me to do at my second visit. If you'll give me a smile first. I want to see your own teeth. Seeing as you haven't opened your mouth once this discussion has all been me. So don't shake your head and give me a smile. Come on. I'm leaving. Don't look at me like that. All I asked for was a smile. Look at you, sitting there all silent, communicating through little scraps of paper, writing your silly little notes, as if you'll get to be able to do anything about these dreams, or about my routine. Smile, and I'll share it with you. There you go. That wasn't so hard, was it? It's not such a horrible smile for you to be so reluctant about it. Now, a little tit for tat. That's the way I like it. And don't stop smiling. Now, the routine is very simple. It's just like any other that one does to brush their teeth, but with the critical aspect. The user must set the sand timer. There's a pattern in the glass or something that's visible with the motion of sand that activates the hypnosis again. Then it lasts for 2 minutes, just like any other sand timer for brushing your teeth. You want to try it out? I won't give it to you, but maybe you'd like to drift a little bit. Drifting is pleasant. It's too pleasant for me to give up. Maybe it'll make you smile a bit more though. I had a great time with the beachcomber, Justine. And I'm having a great time with you. You're strange, like him, but a different kind of strange. A peculiar kind of strange. Tell me, mix recorder, do you like my smile?
Testimony ends. The control room has approved a request to continuously monitor the situation.
Terahertz Gap is written, presented, and edited by Control Room. Today's lesson. Brush your teeth, kids. Please. Please, they're begging you. It's been 3 days and the plaque is killing them. They're planning a revolt.